They came in silence. The sky tore open above Chicago at 4:17 local time. No warnings, no broadcasts, no theatrical threats of domination, just the low hum of gravitic engines and the cold descent of war machines. Buildings shattered before alarms even sounded. By sunrise, the first city block had vanished in a column of light. By noon, the Gorek Compact controlled half the region. They weren't an empire. They weren't soldiers. They were mercenaries, hired teeth for an unknown client. Bipedal, reptilian, thick hides like matte obsidian and glowing neural lines down their arms. Crude symbols on their armor, all of it caked in dust from other worlds they'd raised. Their leader, a mountain of flesh and cybernetics, called himself Brocker the Brutal. He issued a single transmission on every human frequency. Earth is an unpaid bounty. We are here to collect. They mocked us from the first day. Resistance was fractured. What remained of command scrambled to link scattered militias, ex-soldiers, and civilians who still had fight left in them. Formal units had dissolved, replaced by cell networks and encrypted relays. No uniforms. No rules. Just grit and rifles. Snipers became the edge, unseen, uncatchable, lethal. And hated for it. Brocker's lieutenants started calling them rooftop cowards. Broadcasts showed their troops stomping through cities, laughing at every missed shot or failed ambush. Shooters in the sky. They called them blinded birds. But not all birds missed. On the roof of a hollowed-out bank tower stood Rook. No one knew his real name. Just a call sign, passed around in coded transmissions. Rumors said he'd served in the Pacific Theater before the collapse, decorated for something that didn't officially happen. Now he served silence and scope. He hadn't fired a shot in 6 days. He had the patience of erosion. Wrapped in thermal camouflage, layered in grime and sun exposure, he lay perfectly still. The rifle beside him wasn't standard issue. It was handcrafted, refined, adjusted over years to fire the same dozen rounds with surgical precision. He had no spotter. Just a data tablet, synced to weather satellites, and a steady hand. Every morning, the Mercs marched beneath him. Brocker's elite patrols, loud, armored, overconfident. They shoved civilians into transports. Tore down buildings for sport. They were not subtle, and they didn't have to be. And still, Rook did not fire. He watched. Logged behaviors. Timed patrols. Measured angles. Noted wind shifts by the way birds flew sideways and trash fluttered down alleyways. He tracked a particular alien captain who liked to linger near a derelict subway entrance. Tall, with one missing tusk and a plasma carbine that rattled when he walked. Rook had lined him up 17 times. Never took the shot. Not without the green light. Command had gone dark for 3 days. Scrambled networks, lost signals. Some snipers had broken silence and fired out of frustration. They died fast. Alien gunships didn't hesitate. Rook knew better. Silence was not surrender. It was coiling. Waiting for weight to shift. On the 6th night he received a pulse. Not a message. Just a timed blip, disguised in meteorological data. The frequency was familiar. It meant, prepare. He slid the bolt on his rifle and checked chamber pressure. Clean. He calibrated the lens overlay, magnification, drift correction, infrared spectrum. Battery at 87%. Good for another week. No sign of counter-snipers, no drones in immediate airspace. He adjusted his scope to frame the plaza below, where Brocker himself had appeared once before, towering over his minions like a war god. Not again. Not yet. But the plaza had a pattern. A rhythm. They came every 19.3 hours. That mattered. Down below, a patrol dragged a man into the open. Mid-40s, coughing blood. 2 aliens joked, pointing up toward the rooftops, mimicking a scope with their claws. Laughter. The captive was beaten, thrown aside. The patrol marched on. Rook did nothing. Not yet. In the quiet, a static whisper slipped through his earpiece. Low, near inaudible. A code. Shadow 2, confirm watch. Update, high-value targets sighted. Pending green. Rook blinked once. The countdown had begun. They didn't just underestimate him, they laughed. Broadcasts from the Gorek Compact were filled with mockery. Alien voices warped through translation tech, ridiculing Earth's hidden hunters, declaring the rooftop snipers as weak relics of a dead species. Every human resistance message intercepted was twisted into propaganda. They strike from the shadows because they fear open ground, Brocker declared, his voice booming through hijacked billboards. Let them rot in the dust. Rook watched in silence. The aliens strutted through the ruins like conquerors, dragging their boots through ashes and blood. Their armor gleamed. Their blades hissed in the open air. They weren't trained soldiers, they were performers in a massacre, executing a script of superiority. Their formations were sloppy, their patrols loud. Arrogance made them predictable. And predictable things could be killed. Rook's eye stayed fixed on a pattern. The same lieutenant passed the northeast tram station at 0900 every cycle. He walked with a limp, dragged his weapon on one side, adjusted his optics every 13 steps. Next to him, two younger Mercs carried disruptor rifles on safety. Sloppy. Confident. Rook mapped them down to the second. His orders were clear, no engagement until confirmation. One shot could trigger a sweep. They didn't need casualties, they needed chaos at the right moment. So he waited. He remembered the last voice he'd heard before going dark, Captain Valen, battered, breathing hard. They laugh at us now. Let them. The punchline hits first. Then static. The silence that followed was heavier than the heat. Each day, Rook calibrated. Not just the rifle. His mind. Repetition. Observation. He sharpened his edge with patience, knowing most wouldn't last this long. Other snipers had broken. Fired early. Got themselves pinned, burned, or outflanked. Some were still alive, screaming on alien broadcasts, used as bait. He tuned it all out. Discipline wasn't a virtue anymore, it was survival. Below, the aliens celebrated. They'd built a makeshift arena near the collapsed freeway where they forced captives to fight for amusement. Those who refused were executed live. The signal was strong enough to reach resistance bands across the continent. It wasn't warfare, it was theater. But even actors bleed. He kept tracking Brocker's movements through drones and satellite flashes. The warlord moved less frequently now, favoring secured tunnels and aerial routes. Rare glimpses showed him surrounded by a dozen guards and shield emitters. Smart. He'd learned from the first few assassination attempts. But his lieutenants hadn't. They mocked humans with open signals, taunting their ghosts, hiding on rooftops. One, in particular, broadcast a challenge. I offer a bounty to any sniper who dares take the shot. Show us your courage, vermin. No one answered. That was the point. Rook ran dry drills twice a day. Measured crosswinds with torn plastic strips nailed to steel beams. Calculated drop rates with spent brass. He marked wind tunnels between buildings with crushed chalk and mirrored glass. There would be no missed shots when the signal came. Every bullet had a name. Every breath had a purpose. Then came the night shift, aliens patrolling with high-beam drones and pressure sensors. Rook adjusted by changing positions every 72 hours, sleeping in 10-minute intervals. He kept his scent masked with ash, his thermal footprint buried under layers of scavenged insulation. They never found him. They never even got close. The arrogance of the Mercs grew into ritual. They marched in formation beneath visible rooftops, pointing skyward, shouting insults in their own tongue. They knew someone was watching. They just didn't think it mattered. Until it did. He picked one of them, a tall brute with glowing red implants, and a habit of spinning his weapon mid-step. Rook tracked him for 4 cycles. Mapped every pass, every pause. The final time, the alien stopped, turned his head upward, and laughed. Rook's finger didn't flinch. Still no green light. He adjusted the sight, exhaled, and whispered to no one. Soon. The green light came without ceremony. One pulse. Short, sharp. Buried in a compressed data packet from a passing recon drone. No words. No signature. But unmistakable. Approval had been granted. The silence had broken. Rook didn't react outwardly. His breath stayed steady. His fingers moved with mechanical precision, sliding the bolt, loading the round, aligning the reticle. The rifle hummed softly with activated targeting. Below, the plaza shifted from routine to opportunity. 3 hostiles, all marked. The lieutenant with the limp. The guard with the scatter cannon. The comms officer always 2 steps behind. Rook's scope held all 3 in a slow pan. He calculated intervals, accounted for wind curl between buildings, thermal lift from nearby flame pits, and haze distortion from lingering smoke. None of it mattered now. No hesitation. Only execution. The first shot took the lieutenant clean through the eye. No sound from Rook. Just the thump of meat and armor hitting concrete. The 2 others froze, uncomprehending. A moment later, the comms officer raised his receiver. Second shot. Neck severed at the spine. The third tried to duck, too late. A third round clipped the top of his head, splitting it down the middle. 3 kills. 6 seconds. Below, panic erupted. Mercs scattered, shouting in a guttural dialect laced with static. Orders clashed. Formations dissolved. Rook already shifted angle. He wasn't here for body counts. He was a message. Farther down the boulevard, a transport emerged, Brocker's insignia stamped across its hull. Larger than standard patrol vehicles, it hovered above cracked pavement, flanked by armored guards in a diamond formation. This was no routine pass. He was in motion. Rook adjusted elevation, switched scopes, tracked heat bloom from the rear engine to predict its path. No clear shot yet. The angle was wrong. He exhaled and shifted position by inches, scanning ahead to a junction with narrowed walls and high wind drift. A funnel. A window. Brocker hadn't shown himself yet, but his silhouette confirmed the intel. Nearly 3 meters tall, fused armor plates, plasma claws mounted on gauntlets. The guards were scanning upward now, finally aware of the danger but too late to know where. Rook focused on one, rear left, eyes scanning wildly, panic bleeding through the visor. 4th shot. Between armor gaps. The alien collapsed backward, disrupting the diamond. Brocker turned. They locked eyes across 500 meters. Rook squeezed. The 5th round hit the energy shield with a white flare. Not enough to penetrate, but enough to provoke. Brocker roared something into his comms. The transport reversed. Guards formed a bubble. But they were rattled. They didn't know how many were up there. Didn't know it was just one man. That was the advantage. Rook moved again. Switched to a shadowed perch, slower shot opportunity, but better visibility. He calculated fuel lines beneath the hovercraft. If he couldn't kill Brocker directly, he could trap him. He chambered a round, tuned to penetrate alloy. 6th shot. Fuel tank ruptured. The vehicle dropped with a metallic scream, clipping a street barrier. Not a kill, but enough. The guards dragged Brocker toward a nearby bunker. Rook let them run. The message had landed. No one was untouchable. No armor was absolute. No command was safe. Sirens from alien towers began wailing. Scramblers activated. Drone wings deployed. Rook shut down his beacon, already moving. He changed position, cleaned the barrel, delete trace paths. 6 shots. 3 kills. 1 crippled transport. 1 shaken warlord. He whispered into the encrypted mic, barely audible, voice flat. First wave complete. Rooftop active. The response came through moments later, laced in static but unmistakable. 1 word. Echo. The retaliation was immediate. Less than 30 minutes after the transport crash, the sky above the city changed. Scout drones vanished, replaced by heavy orbital surveillance. Gorek warfleets, once content to loiter in low orbit, repositioned with deliberate menace. Streets filled with rapid deployment shock units, eyes sweeping the rooftops, weapons hot. The message had been received. The mercenaries weren't laughing anymore. Rook had already relocated. He moved 4 blocks east through connected access tunnels, timed with patrol lulls. No light. No unnecessary contact. Every footstep calculated. He left no heat trail, no sound. The rifle was disassembled and packed in a padded roll over his back. He wasn't just a shooter now, he was a symbol they wanted erased. Across resistance networks, coded chatter surged. Rook's still burning. 1 sniper, 6 bullets. Brocker blinked. The story had become wildfire. Embers catching in the minds of scattered cells, reigniting belief. Not because of the kills, but because someone had cracked the illusion. That made him target number 1. Alien jammers swept the grid, frying electronics. Pulse sweeps shook buildings, searching for thermal anomalies. When that failed, they turned to civilians. Public executions resumed. Broadcasts showed humans lined against walls, accused of sheltering the phantom sniper. No trials. No negotiations. Just warnings and blood. But fear didn't spread the way the Gorek expected. It hardened. New sniper nests emerged in the west blocks. One near the river. Another on the burnt-out cathedral roof. All unconnected to Rook, all acting on their own, but under his shadow. They fired with purpose. Not wild shots. Not desperation. Chosen targets. Supply officers. Comms techs. Pilots. The compact's backbone began to creak. The response grew more violent. The aliens hit entire zones with firebombs. Collapsed buildings indiscriminately. Still, the ghosts kept firing. Rook remained silent. He hadn't fired another shot. His purpose wasn't body count, it was ignition. He moved bunker to bunker, patching data lines, feeding targeting intel to younger marksmen. He sent weather data, entry routes, enemy troop shifts. Not orders. Not commands. Just pieces of a larger picture. And people followed. The resistance had learned the value of precision. 1 shot. 1 target. Always worth it. Elsewhere, Brocker went dark. No appearances. No more taunts. Reports suggested he'd been moved to an underground bastion deep beneath the central zone. Surrounded by triple-locked shields and command-level guards. Out of reach. For now. But his absence spoke louder than his voice ever had. In his place, new lieutenants rose, more cautious, more brutal. They deployed synthetic hounds, machines that could trace scent profiles across concrete and steel. Rook evaded them by bathing in solvent runoff, masking every biological trace. They used seismic readers next, scanning rooftops for unnatural stillness. He adapted with breathing cycles that mimicked broken HVAC rhythms. The more they hunted, the more they revealed about themselves. He took notes. Always watching. Always quiet. A transmission came through a cracked relay, Valen's voice scratchy but alive. Heard what you did. Took guts. Took more than that. We're moving on their relay node near the old tower. Thought you should know. Rook didn't reply. He just uploaded a path with 4 ambush angles, wind data, and nightfall forecasts. Every human sniper now used some variation of his positioning grid. They called it Rook's Clock. Sectors divided by optimal elevation, escape paths, and triangulation chances. He never claimed credit. Never asked for recognition. The only mark he left was accuracy. The compact responded by doubling patrols. They stopped using open streets. They armored their officers. They kept heads down. And that was the shift. When enemies looked up, they no longer saw weakness. They saw consequences. They stepped into the open with hesitation. They spoke with paranoia. The rooftop cowards had become myth. And myths don't miss. The final call came encoded through an obsolete weather relay, piggybacked on a radiation burst. Primitive, but effective. The message was short. Tower cracked. Window in 12. Confirmed Brocker. Extraction not guaranteed. It wasn't a request, it was a chance. One that wouldn't come again. Rook unpacked the rifle one last time. The central tower had been the hub of alien command since day 3 of occupation. Reinforced with shielding, surrounded by guard patrols, layered in sensors. No one had breached it. No one had gotten close. Until now. An underground resistance cell had crippled the primary relay during a suicide run, dropping secondary shields for exactly 12 minutes during their system reboot cycle. Internal access remained locked, but visibility from adjacent rooftops had returned. That's all Rook needed. He didn't hesitate. The new position was brutal: no cover, exposed angles, high wind turbulence from nearby engine platforms. But the line of sight was perfect. 411 meters, downward incline, partial obscuration. He used the wind to his advantage, timing the shot against its momentary pause, adjusting for density variance from heat exhaust vents. Brocker stood behind a panel of glass, unaware the shielding had dropped. Even without perfect clarity, Rook could identify him: stature, posture, movement pattern. The armor confirmed it. So did the presence of elite guards pacing nervously. The warlord was reviewing something on a holographic map, gesturing toward deployment zones. Calm. Unthreatened. He still believed he was beyond reach. Rook steadied his breathing. One finger on the trigger. No wasted motion. The world narrowed to the scope, the reticle, the target. He squeezed. The bullet punched through the glass, the shieldless barrier offering no resistance. Brocker staggered. Not dead. But hit. Rook fired again, 2 shots rapid. One clipped a guard. The other buried itself in Brocker's side. The alien collapsed, shielded by his remaining entourage. Emergency lockdown snapped into place. The window closed. But the damage had been done. Across the city, resistance cells erupted into coordinated strikes. Not random, not scattered, precise. Fuel depots sabotaged. Drone towers hijacked. Key officers eliminated. The tower shot had been the signal. The ghosts weren't symbols anymore, they were strategy. Rook abandoned the perch seconds later, already descending through a maintenance shaft. Drones swarmed the area within minutes, but found nothing. He was gone before they arrived. Reports trickled in. Brocker had been wounded badly. Internal bleeding. Command destabilized. The compact's network fractured as rival lieutenants issued conflicting directives. The war machine hiccuped, then stuttered. In that gap, humanity surged forward. Every resistance group across 3 sectors adopted rooftop doctrine. Fast elevation kills. Silent movement. Maximum disruption with minimal contact. The alien playbook no longer applied. Back-channel audio leaked of Brocker screaming during surgery, cursing Earth-born shadows, threatening to glass the planet if he ever regained control. But his authority was slipping. Half his forces rerouted power to shielding. The other half retreated into bunkers, afraid of being next. Snipers now moved in teams. Not to shoot more, but to teach. Each rooftop became a school. Every rifle passed down became sharper, steadier. The resistance wasn't a movement anymore, it was a method. Rook vanished from all channels. No new transmissions. No signatures. Only footprints in wet concrete near an old relay site, and a melted casing found beside an empty shell. His name stopped appearing in messages. But the effect didn't fade. Even alien broadcasts stopped using the term coward. Every alien commander instructed squads to scan rooftops first. Sniper alarms became standard protocol. The silence had become fear. And fear, well applied, is a weapon no armor can block. So when new recruits asked where the tide turned, they weren't told about battalions or bombings. They were told about one man on a rooftop, 6 bullets, and the moment the sky cracked, not from ships descending, but from the shot that told the invaders they'd already lost.